All right, we welcome everybody back to the Krueg Show Niners Nation edition. Kyle Posey stops by every Thursday. We always have some phenomenal Niner conversations, and he's back with us on a Thursday as we come together between minicamp and training camp for the 49ers. What's going on, Kyle? How are you, man?
Slow news week for the 49ers.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, this team.
Never a shortage of topics. Well, let's jump right in on one of the things that I thought was one of my favorite aspects, or one of my favorite topics this week surrounding the 49ers. And that was when Trey Lance hit the podium. And I love everything about Trey Lance. And I know people are probably tired of me, singing the praises of Trey Lance. It's like, Krug, pump the brakes. He hasn't played it down. I get all that. But the same reason that the players seem to like him, that Brian Griese had great things to say about him. They all kind of second the same things that my scouting friends told me prior to the draft, which was this kid is all about ball and he's about getting better. And he already has this incredible skill set. So he's got the skill set and he's all about getting better. To me, I was sold right there. And I think now we're starting to see that he's getting comfortable in the role of leader. I thought what he said about the critics this week, he's like, hey, you're there, but respectfully, you're not my issue. You're not my priority. My teammates are, my coaches are. How they feel about my play matters, not just most. That's all that matters. And the rest of it really doesn't matter. So, and I mean this respectfully and kindly, he just said it so well. But I think of that statement, he kind of took another step towards leading this football team.
The respectfully was perfect just because we knew what he was trying to say. And he didn't have to say that, but he was very careful with his words. He didn't want to mince words. And he wanted to tell us, hey, look, I understand that you guys have things that you have to write. I understand that you have to have opinions and put it out there, but I don't care. I really don't care. It's not going to bother me. It's not going to move me. I have a job to do. And I like the fact that he pointed out, I'm going to go out and ball, and that's going to be for my teammates. That's going to be for the people behind me, the people who are blocking for me. So I love that he included his teammates in that, and he didn't make it about himself. Just the way that he carried himself, honestly, in those 5 minutes was pretty cool to see, because you're seeing you're kind of seeing a kid evolve, right? You're seeing him go from the back seat to the front seat. You're seeing him take control, and man, I hope that he is as good as we think he is, because people are going to come and gloat if he is not. I just can see the other side of it where he throws an interception. People are going to say, well, he's so cocky, he's this and that. When really, that didn't come off like that to me at all, but I can see where he does. What do you think about that side, where if he does struggle, people will come to gloat?
Well, I mean, it comes with the territory of the NFL. I mean, it's the most popular sport in America by far. All eyes are on the quarterback and the head coach. The scrutiny is off the charts. If you're an iconic franchise with Super Bowl designs, it goes up. The pressure's dialed up exponentially. So it just kind of comes with the territory. And I think he understands that. I think he's got the whole picture in perspective. And I can't wait for him to hit field, because I think the 49ers game plan on draft day was, we like some quarterback prospects. He obviously was one of the top 3 that they really liked. He was on the board for them. And I think what they like about him is they like the person, and they like the work ethic, that Midwestern work ethic. And he in some ways he was very advanced coming out of college. In some ways he was extremely raw. But the idea is he's going to get there because he loves the process. He's going to put in the work and do all those reps. And I think James Jones, the former San Jose State receiver, this week on the NFL Network, who said, I think Trey Lance is going to be a spectacular player. And I agree with James Jones. I really do. So to me, it's all about reps. They got a great surrounding cast. They got a great play caller. I want to know your thought, though, Kyle, on the quarterback room this year, because the assumption is Jimmy will be dealt. Let's just go with that. Kyle's pretty much said so. So it's going to be Trey. and it's going to be Nate Sudfeld, and they were together last year, so then maybe there's some commonalities there. Maybe there's even some bonding there. Then there's Brock Purdy, who's kind of a very veteran-like collegiate quarterback because he played an awful lot at Iowa State. He's played a lot of football. Then you got Brian Griese in his first year as the quarterback coach, first year coaching in the NFL, but a former NFL player as the quarterback coach. You've got offensive assistants in addition. Obviously, Shanahan, former NFL or former wide receiver, collegiate wide receiver, is a terrific play designer. How do you see the dynamic of the 49er quarterback room evolving with Jimmy, the veteran, leaving, Trey kind of taking that step forward? And what do you think of the trio of QBs that'll be in that room?
Well, on James Jones, real quick. So he called him a bona fide superstar. It's funny how the people who have seen Trey Lance play and throw are talking about him compared to people who haven't, and they're talking about him. They're on the two opposite sides. Oh, just as far as the quarterback room goes, I imagine Nate Sudfeld is just a phenomenal communicator, is a guy who can see the field, like who can see things, and is another body, is another person, another set of eyes for Trey Lance to lean on. Same with Brian Griese. I imagine, and Kyle Shanahan, probably the way he talked about this, the way that he can relay the message to Trey Lance, the way that he can see things through the same lens as him and kind of help. And it all comes back to communication. So I think that's what this offseason was, just bringing back guys who can talk to Trey Lance, who can help him grow in the day-to-day process, because for Trey Lance, he's probably going to be running into things daily that he's not used to seeing. So having a guy who he can bounce ideas off, like Brian Griese, like Nate Sudfeld, those will be big deals. And in Brock Purdy, it's probably going to be the same thing, just from a younger lens. So again, like, he's played a lot of football, and that does matter. And he was on the field in a lot of big games in the Big 12. So just having guys who have been there, having guys who can talk about the position, who know the position, that'll be big for Trey Lance. So those three names that we're talking about. So it would be they're putting Trey Lance in a great position to succeed, is what I would say. What do you think about the addition of Brian Griese? Because it sounds like, and I mean, shoot, he said, I haven't talked to Jimmy at all. So if he hasn't talked to Jimmy, it seems like all their focus is on Trey.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways I really like it because, hey, it's like we're learning together. Because it's not like, hey, man, I did this in Detroit and I did this in Philly and this worked with this guy and this worked with that guy. So he doesn't have a bunch of, you could say that's negative or a positive. You could say he hasn't proved his worthiness of being an NFL coach. You could argue that, or you could also say he's fresh and he's looking at things through kind of a fresh new prism. I think he's going to help Trey on and off the field. I think he's going to help him off the field because he's been an NFL quarterback and he understands the demands on the time of an NFL quarterback. And I think he'll counsel him on as many things, decisions that he's going to make off the field, as far as, hey, maybe you ought to keep your schedule, here's how you handle your schedule. Here's how you handle, a short week. Here's how you handle, needing to spend extra time watching film. Here's where, just the life of an NFL quarterback, as far as not just your leadership, not just the playbook, but, everything, your media obligations, how you command your life away from the facility. All eyes are on you, especially in a big market like the San Francisco Bay Area. So I think Griese's going to help him a lot from that standpoint. And then I think Griese is going to learn along with Trey. Kyle's offense, this is Griese's first go around. So this is kind of his opportunity. He's gotten an opportunity here because of his relationship with the Shanahans to start off at a really, really high level. 49ers quarterback coach. That's a real high level to start, but he's got that NFL experience. So I think it's going to be a positive. I really do.
So with Griese, and they actually just changed the quarterback rules where, look at the guys from Shanahan to like Brian Daboll. You can go down the list. There's, I believe, 14 former quarterback coaches who are now head coaches. Nate Hackett is the latest from the Broncos. Now he's a head coach. Griese can kind of have a fast track job to a head coach if he really wants to. So he's going from quarterback coach. There's no real offensive coordinator. Let's be honest here. It's still Kyle Shanahan. He can be promoted if Trey Lance has a couple of really solid seasons. And a few years from now, we could be talking about Brian Griese because the 49ers have this high-flying offense with all this speed and big plays. Brian Griese can kind of slot himself into a potential head coaching position. That's kind of interesting to look at. A guy going from the media booth 1 year, a few years down the line after a couple seasons with the 49ers, assuming they're successful, assuming that they have that they move the ball and score some touchdowns on offense, of course. But do you think that that's in his aspirations, that Griese wants to be like an actual coach?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I'll say this. I mean, until you live a full calendar year as an NFL coach and invest the kind of time that these guys do, I don't know that you can say that you're a long-term guy until you really see not just how the job wears on you, but how the job wears on your family, your wife, your kids. I mean, these guys are all in. I mean, we like to think we work hard at our jobs. We're like, casual observers at our jobs compared to NFL coaches, right? These guys are spending 100-hour weeks. I mean, they're living at the facility. They're there at 6 a.m. They're there at midnight. They're seeing their football family more than their families. So some guys are made for it, love it, or sometimes their families at a certain age, their kids are grown up. Now it's a great time for them. Maybe Griese falls into that category. But I think you got to see what 100-hour weeks, does to your life, to your relationships, and see if that's sustainable for you. So I think there's that, right? The time commitment compared to TV. But I think you're totally right, Kyle, as far as he could potentially be on the fast track. He's a well-spoken guy. He's an intelligent guy. And in this particular situation, he could have a very fast ascension, especially if the 49ers put up big offensive numbers. There's another guy to mention, and that's Kubiak's son, I believe, is in that room as well. And he's a bright young coach as well. So they're well fortified as far as offensive brain power. And there's a reason that Mike McDaniel is a head coach right now. Part of it is Kyle Shanahan, his ability to devise good plays for his offense. That helps everybody look good. When you win, everybody gets success. Everybody gets credit.
So when you talk about the working schedule for a coach, you're not exaggerating. I don't think people are aware of how many hours they spend at the facility. So 16-hour days are real for them. Like, it's 6, get home at 8, probably eat a meal, maybe. And even when you're winding down, you're thinking of, all right, what do I have to do for tomorrow? What do I have to get ready for tomorrow? Go to sleep, wake up, do it again. So you maybe have like 2 or 3 hours of personal time. The rest are spent at the facility. So it is a long year, and you are never with your family. You don't really have any life outside of football. So it consumes everything you do.
You're all in. I mean, I was a quality control guy in the CFL. We used to show up I thought I worked hard. I'm like, the first day I got there at 7, every single person was already there. Next day I got there at 6, everybody was there. Finally, I'm like, hey, what time do you guys get in here? Coach is like, I'll pick you up. I'm like, what time do you want to pick me up, Coach? He's like, I'll pick you up at 4:45. I'm like, oh my God, 4:45. So he picked me up 4:45, and then we're watching practice film, and then we're putting together practice scripts, then we're going to practice, then we're having lunch, then we're maybe doing some weightlifting, then we're taking off more games, then we're watching more practice films and making tomorrow's scripts and getting ready for the nighttime meeting. I mean, this is the camp schedule is just endless. The players, they've streamlined it, and they've gotten them off their feet, and they've made it a little bit easier, and they've eliminated the 2-a-days. But for the coaches, man, those guys are grinding. I mean, they are grinding, and it is not glamorous. It's you better love it, because you're going to be there from 5 a.m. to even on a slow night, guys will get out of there probably 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And some coaches sleep over. You heard about Vermeil and Gruden and these guys, Joe Gibbs, sleeping in their office night after night after night. So it's a commitment. And so I'm eager to see, what year one of Trey and Griese is going to look like. But I'm excited for it too, because I think it'll be nice to have a fresh start, right? It's a total fresh start. He has no preconceived notions of Trey Lance. Lance has no preconceived notions of him. He doesn't have bad habits that he created by other coaching stops or other offenses or anything. They're all going to be at the same starting point. I think that is a good thing. Let me ask you about another quarterback, because there's another quarterback in the news today that we both know quite a bit about, and that's Colin Kaepernick, who worked out for the Raiders. The Raiders have Chase Garbers, and they've got Nick Mullins, and they got obviously Derek Carr. There's another quarterback in there as well, but they brought in Kaepernick for a workout. And we've seen Kaepernick's entire career, from his days at Nevada to his debut with the Niners to the Super Bowl. And where were you last time Kaepernick was on the field as far as his game? What was your football, not just strictly your football evaluation of where his game was when he last played NFL ball?
That was such a long time ago that
I know it's almost hard to remember.
Yeah, are we even talking about the same player? So you have to see him work out, right? Like, I would have to see him throw, because that was 5-6 years ago, like at the very least, right? So, and
nobody's done this.
Yeah, yeah, man. And think about the position we're talking about. He's not coming in. He's not playing wide receiver. He's coming in and coming to defenses. Think about the evolution of defenses over the past 5 years. Think about how important slots and nickels are. Thinking about the evolution of then we were still getting out of the Seattle cover one single high safety. Now we've transitioned to like Fangio, Brandon Staley, split safeties, where it's a lot of quarters and a lot of combo coverages. So everything is different, man. Just as far as Colin goes, he has a hose. I feel like everybody knows that. It'll be interesting to see how much of his athleticism remains, just because, he was a superhuman athlete, but even if he's 80% of that, he'll still be fine. But I just want to see, I'd have to see him go up against NFL defenses, man. I just hope this isn't a PR stunt. And a lot of times when we get news like this, like even if it's just a workout, I was a little hesitant just because it came at the same time when John Gruden's case was up. So the NFL always tends to do this, where they love to sneak news by us, and this feels like a distraction. So Josh McDaniels actually spoke on this, and he said, "We brought in a ton of people for workouts, and if there's any opportunity to improve the team, we said it from day one that we would look at every opportunity. He's not the first player that we've looked at, and it's not going to be the last one." And I took that as, all right, he's not getting signed. It was right. This was just a workout. This was just to say we did it. But the odds of it just doesn't seem like it. And again, I think it's more of the league and the more of what the NFL has going on around it. But I hope that he signs. And if he does sign, it'll be one of the most fun preseasons we've had in a long, long time, just because all eyes will be glued to when Colin gets on the field. He should be in the league. Jake Fromm started 3 games last year, man. I can go down the list of line of quarterbacks of who shouldn't be in the league compared to him. So he deserves a roster spot. I can tell you that based on what he did 5, 6, 7 years ago. That's probably my biggest answer. What about you?
Well, it's funny. I was thinking, who was that other quarterback? Is Jarrett Stidham. They acquired him in a trade. So they have Stidham, they have Mullins, they've got Carr, they've got Chase Garbers, and now they would have Cap. I go back to that Arizona game where I felt like Arizona was no longer playing. They were not defending anything but the quarterback. They were dropping into a short zone, keeping their eyes peeled on the quarterback and just waiting for him to kind of telegraph where he was going with his passes. And in that last game that I remember, it was 2 pick sixes, and it was like, wow. I mean, it almost like, you're going to have to throw with anticipation now, and you're going to have to coach up your eyes and be more refined. Otherwise, teams are just going to defend you by dropping into a short zone, knowing you're going to kind of telegraph where you're going to go. And then he had kind of a longish release, and the combination of those factors, it's like it's game over until you adjust. But the arm strength, the foot speed, the toughness, the athleticism, it's all there. So, and this guy's played, he didn't progress like I think a lot of people wanted him to progress. But ultimately, he looks very similar, at least physically, when you're watching him in these workouts. And I'm just watching highlights of the workouts. I'm not actually seeing the full workout, but he looks similar body type to the body type that he had. But now he's 35. So it's hard to really say. I definitely think I'd love to have him. I'd love to see him get a job, because I think there's a lot of people that believe that he is being blackballed from the NFL. And if that's not the case, if it really is about just teams are all making their independent decisions, then I'd like to see some team then sign him to kind of prove that that's not the case, to kind of close down that narrative going forward. Because I think I'm now in the belief, if you said, what do you believe? Until he gets a job, I kind of am in the camp that I think he's being blackballed. So I have to be convinced that he's not being blackballed by not a workout, by actually somebody taking pen to paper and making this a reality. So I personally am rooting for that. And I also believe in second chances. And I think that this guy has more. I know in my mind that the top 100 quarterbacks get jobs in the NFL. There's 32 teams, 33 teams, whatever it is. There's 3 quarterbacks on a team. That's roughly 100 quarterbacks. He is undoubtedly one of the 100 best quarterbacks out there. Thus, he should be in the league.
Yeah, and think about it. So they just expanded the practice squad rule, so you can have like 8 veterans on the practice squad. Are you telling me with 2-3 deep quarterback rooms, the addition of practice squad where you're already carrying one guy, and the addition of the latest rules that he's not going to be in, even if that's expanded to like the top 110, he wouldn't be on there? Like, come on, what are we doing here? So it has to be blackballed. And even if we are so far removed from then, the fact that he isn't on the roster, the fact that we have guys, like I mentioned, the backups who have no business playing, no business seeing the field. Like Brock Purdy, like who are you going to take, Colin Kaepernick or Brock Purdy in a Kyle Shanahan offense? Like, it just doesn't make much sense. So even as you talk about those pick sixes, we've seen even guys like Nick Mullins play, man, and it's a struggle for them to cross the freaking midfield. So like, it has to be Cap.
Well, and then there's those who, people will come out and say, the worst thing that you can be as a backup quarterback is some kind of a distraction. And will he be a distraction? And will it be about football? Will it be about other things? There's that discussion as well, and I don't know where I weigh in on that. I mean, you'd almost have to talk to coaches and players and personnel people and find out exactly what the level of distraction is and what the risk reward is and how they see it. One guy weighing in here, Jonathan Marino, makes a donation. He says, respectfully, F off, referencing the Trey Lance talk. He said, haha, Trey's got some swagger. I love it. Sad this was not the story out of Tuesday. Respect Trey. Excited for this kid. Yeah, I think we're all pretty excited for Trey Lance. All right, one of the things that we do seem like we're getting closer as far as a finish line on a final answer is Alex Mack going to come back? And it sounds like he's not been at the facility, and now there are more people believing that Mack indeed will lean towards retiring. A phenomenal career. Played at Cal, played an extensive career, and has played some pretty good football with the 49ers. That being said, this now becomes one of the key questions going into this camp coming up this summer, Kyle. Who do you think? I mean, if you look at is it Jake Brendel? Is it Donovan West? Is Nick Zakel from Fordham? Is it Brunskill moving from right guard to center with Jalen Moore maybe stepping in at right guard? Is School in the mix here? Is Jason Poe from Mercer in the mix here? I mean, to me, I think that's going to be really interesting just to see the center battle. And, that's a key spot for sure in any offense. How do you handicap that race this summer, assuming Mack is going to retire?
Yeah, I think we can assume that Mack is a goner just because when Kittle was at the podium on Tuesday, he was speaking in terms of Mack being like past tense, like a teammate. And he said that at the wedding, Kittle was begging Mack's wife to have Alex return for another year. So I think the writing's on the wall on that he's not going to play for the 49ers again. But I don't think the youth movement's necessarily a bad thing. So at practice on Tuesday, the one practice that the media could see, Jalen Moore transitioned to guard, so he's playing guard. And then obviously Aaron Banks was the other guard. So there's going to be a young guy no matter how you slice it. All the names you mentioned, they're all young. So that leads me to believe it's going to be Daniel Brunskill just because you don't want to have, 3 first-year starters in front of your first-year starting quarterback. That would be terrifying for everybody involved, including the play caller, especially the play caller. So I think Daniel Brunskill is a guy who's been there. Again, he has over a half season's worth of starting experience at center. And I mean, for a center, he has to make the calls. He has a lot on his plate, but you don't have to be a world beater, man. You don't have to have these pancake blocks. You don't have to the way that they slide their protections, it seems like Brunskill won't be lining up one-on-one against Aaron Donalds anymore. He'll be more of the helper in pass protection. So I think getting a guy like Brunskill who just has awareness, has played multiple positions, and has seen more at the NFL level than all the other guys that you name, he probably has the inside track. I imagine he'll have the best chance to win the starting job. But like some of those athletes, just athletically, of the other names, they are probably next in line. Like they are probably down the road if Brunskill doesn't work out. So again, they have a lot of, I guess, room to work with when it comes to Daniel Brunskill, but he's not tied like to the roster. It's not like he's going to be around forever. So he's on a 1-year deal. He's an unrestricted free agent next year. So really, it's a 1-year tryout for everybody, and Brunskill has probably the leg up. What do you think? Do you think it's Brunskill's job to lose?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's the sensible thing, right? That and the way you laid it out there was perfect because you're totally right. I mean, think about it. If you had, you had a young starting quarterback, Jalen Moore, Aaron Banks, and Donovan West. But let me push back on this front. What if you get to camp, Kyle, and all of a sudden maybe West or Banks or Moore or all three just look like guys who can really move people in the run game? Right? What if these guys are blowing people off the ball? West is pretty strong and about 310. What if the kid from Mercer starts blowing people off the ball because he's playing with leverage and he's strong in the upper body and he starts really giving you some pop in the run game? And then you've got, big-bodied Aaron Banks with a year of experience at left guard, back where he's comfortable, and Jalen Moore, who I really like Jalen Moore. I think he's a really good-looking young offensive line prospect. Let's just say you're getting some serious punch, some serious pop in the run game from those interior guys. Man, that would be awfully intriguing. I mean, the Niners have struggled in the interior in the short yardage game and on the goal line to create that space at the line of scrimmage. And now you got a quarterback who can take it up on in there, and you're pretty confident in his physicality and his power. And then you got 3 young, powerful blockers that could maybe actually move people in the run game. I don't know. I'll just say this. I agree with you. I would say 90% chance it's Brunskill. But I'll give a 10% chance that they show up in camp and just whoever really moves people in the interior takes that gig. And maybe they're more of a power run team this year than we've seen in the past because they do have Banks and Poe and Moore and Trey and some bigger backs. I don't know. I think it makes tons of sense to go with Brunskill for a lot of reasons, as you kind of laid it out there perfectly. But I would say that would be the one. Maybe they could be totally dominant in the interior, running the football. And if that were the case, man, that would be hard. That would be a hard thing to look away from, especially if you thought like West or Poe could be like a plug and play 5 or 6 year starter.
So when you talk about the 49ers run game, they were not good in short yardage situations.
No.
And that is backed up by the eye test, and that's also backed up by statistics. So the 49ers were 29th in the league on third down run conversion percentage. They gained a first down on only 42% of their rushing attempts on third down. So when they handed it off to running back, so when they didn't give Deebo Samuel the ball so he can do everything essentially, their conversion rate was just 42%, and that was on fourth down and third and 3 or fewer. So they were dead last in the NFL at 42%. They only averaged 2.3 yards per carry on 3rd and 2 or fewer, which was 26 in the NFL. So fourth last and 4th worst in the NFL, or 6th worst in the NFL in essentially short yardage situations. So there has to be a change, right? And what about the opposite? And I will say, if it's Donovan West, if it's Jason Poe, if it's one of these guys and they're starting to flash, the good news for the 49ers, their coaching staff, Kyle Shanahan, they do give their young guys a chance. So it might not happen the first couple practices, but eventually, and we saw with Trey Lance, like last year during training camp, as he was getting more and more comfortable, we started to see more split reps. Like it went from 90-10 to Jimmy to almost 60-40, 50-50 for the quarterback split. So if they were willing to do that with a first-year quarterback, and I know they have a lot of investments in him, they will probably do that for one of these younger centers. But what if it's the opposite? What if Eric Armstead and Javon Kinlaw are blowing these dudes up and they get no movement and the running game looks a lot like it did last year? Then what do you do? Because are you just shuffling in centers right and left? I agree with you 100% on Jalen Moore. I think out of all these names we're talking about, from left guard to center to right guard, I think Moore is going to be the best player, man. I think his athletic skill set is the best. I feel like the mistakes that he made last year were mental and they weren't physical, and you can correct those. You can't teach him to be big and strong like he is. You can't teach him to move the way he is. You can't teach him to be able to reach or cut off guys. And I think Moore has a lot of the traits that you want, and obviously played at a high level in college in the SEC. But I'm really excited to see what he does. And last year, he wasn't supposed to play tackle. Kyle Shanahan talked about that. There was just so many injuries at tackle that they had to play in there and never really got a chance to move inside the guard. So he's made the swap. He's made the position switch, and I think it's going to do well for him.
Yeah, I liked him, before the Niners drafted him. I think I saw him in one of the All-Star games, and he's just burying people in the run game, and he's athletic, and he's tough. I like that pick. And I know he didn't resurface at the end of the year, and Compton got all the reps, but I'm not deterred at all by that. I liked what I saw in the preseason, and I have high expectations for young Jalen Moore here in year 2. Jaguayo 56 donates $5. Says Krueg a little different, but Brian Griese sat behind John Elway. He can just give Trey advice on how to be a pro. Props to Shanahan for developing good coaches. I mean, that is kind of an underrated part of winning football in the NFL, Kyle, is just the ability to not just develop players, but to develop a coaching staff. And when you have a system and you believe in your system, and you really take time to go seek out quality coaches to plug in, man, there's no cap on coaches. You can pay them what you want. You can go for the guys you want. And to me, how well you coach your coaching staff going into camp has a huge impact, I think, on your success and how well those coaches then coach the players when camp starts.
Yeah, I think you see with the 49ers that Shanahan just goes out and gets guys that he's either coached before his players, or that, I don't want to call them buddies, but essentially that he's familiar with. And by doing that, in the sense, he lets them be themselves and he lets them be as hands-on as you want. We all know Chris Kosurik's loud and will get his point across, but he's not the only coach like that. I've seen DeMeco Ryans give it to guys. He's lean into guys. And even on the offensive side of things, I've seen the running backs coach. I've seen Wes Welker, who's not here anymore, of course, but I've seen them all give it to players and just be themselves. At the same time, they show them love too. And that's, the balance is there. So we've seen their staff, they've been able to develop and they've been able to get other guys paid. So there's a lot of turnover too. Let's be honest about that. There's a lot of different coaches. So I imagine, the head guy's still there. All the core players are still here, but it'll be kind of interesting to see if the vibe, if anything changes just with all the turnover on the coaching staff.
One guy weighing in on the center, position, Niner by nature, 88. I see what you're doing there. Nick Zakelj is my dark horse for center. We'll see. Zakelj definitely sounds like he's got the disposition to want to fight people at the line of scrimmage. That's for sure. And that can make up for a lot of things that you don't know when he's a young player trying to transition to the NFL from a lower level of competition. All right, let's talk about a guy that I heard great things about from a couple different people in the last few days, and that's Talanoa Hufanga. And all the conjecture was, man, the Niners need a safety. They got to get a safety. The people who didn't like the draft were like, they didn't get a safety. But Hufanga, we kind of look at Hufanga as a guy just because he was a late round pick and they used him at first as a special teamer. But I mean, this was a great player at USC, not a good player, a great player. The question was, did he have the measurables to transition to the NFL? And then when you watched him, Kyle, he started playing faster and faster and faster. And suddenly his timing, he's arriving right as the ball's arriving. And that play down the field against Green Bay in the title or in the playoff game, he was right there stride for stride when Aaron Rodgers went to test him down the middle of the field. And I think it's pretty clear Hufanga's getting better. So let's look at the Niner defensive backfield, because I think on paper, I think this is one of the big questions, is how good are the Niners in the secondary? Charvarius Ward, probably with either Ambry Thomas, maybe Emmanuel Mosley. Those are probably your three corners, with Jimmy Ward and Hufanga. Ward at free and strong, and Hufanga at strong. What do you think of? What do you think we'll see out of Hufanga this summer? And what do you think of kind of the remade Niners secondary?
Yeah, so at Tuesday's practice, the one practice I was open to the media, it was Charvarius Ward, it was Emmanuel Mosley. Those were the two starting cornerbacks. And then at safety, it was, as you said, Jimmy Ward and then Talanoa Hufanga. So not much of a surprise. I want to see if Hufanga is playing faster. I want to see if he's just more aggressive. And when I say more aggressive, I mean not like coming downhill necessarily, but just like where his eyes going. Does he see routes develop? Is he playing with more confidence? Because when he was in some one-on-one situations last year, he seemed kind of hesitant. He seemed kind of somewhat unsure of himself. So I want to see how that works. And with a big arm quarterback in practice, it's going to expose you if you are a step late because there's no hiding. And that'll be interesting just to see. But for some reason, and I want you can push back on this if you disagree. I think by adding Charvarius Ward, and essentially they're paying him to be their CB1, if Ward is as good as people think he's going to be, and I actually do think he's going to be very good, I don't think their other safety, you could say, so Hufanga in this case, I don't think it really matters. I don't think he's going to be a liability just because their corners are going to be good enough, paired with a pass rush, paired with the front seven, that the last safety won't be able to bring the rest of the defense down, if that makes sense. What do you feel? What do you think about that?
Well, I do. I think the numbers are. I think it's a much deeper position than it was at the end of the year. I mean, that's what I think. I mean, when you look at the number of people they've added back there, I mean, at the end of the year they didn't have Jason Verrett. Now he's back, and I'm expecting Thomas and Lenore to both improve pretty significantly in year two. Most players do. Charvarius Ward's big and fast and experienced, and he should step in right away. And then you got other guys. I mean, Tariq Castro-Fields. I'll tell you one thing, Kyle. I've spent over an hour watching Tariq Castro-Fields. I can't figure out why this guy went in the 6th round. I'm not getting it. I'm not seeing it. I mean, the games that I watch the Buckeye game. I watched the Wisconsin game. I watched his highlight reel. I watched him at the Senior Bowl practices, which I had on tape. I saw him in the Senior Bowl. He's stride for stride. He's got good corner movement skills. He's got good man-to-man skills. There's some coaching points at the catch point, but I mean, show me a young corner that doesn't have some refinement that's needed. So I like Tariq Castro-Fields. So then there's Dante Johnson, there's Samuel Womack, there's Mosley, there's Denard. I mean, they've got a lot of bodies there. So I think they're really fortified with depth on the corner, and I think that's going to settle the entire secondary down because it's going to create a great competition this summer. And I think it's going to be a dramatically improved secondary because I think Hufanga in year 2 is going to make a step forward too. I think he's going to continue to play to get he's all in as a player. So I think he's going to continue to get nothing but better. And he was pretty damn good at the end of the year.
You would think the same applies to Ambry Thomas because he didn't play in 2020 and he really just played the second half of last season, and not really even the second half. It was like the last quarter of last season. So with more experience, with more reps, and just being able to play, I don't know if he's going to be the nickel guy. I don't know if he's going to play outside and Emmanuel Mosley kicks inside. They have all these type of combinations, which is a great thing because this has never been in the case last year or the case in previous seasons. So, but the good news for Ambry Thomas is by being around another year, you would think that he's learned the ropes a little bit and he's just going to take his talent to another level.
I thought Ambry really, I mean, think about this too. I mean, you know the game. I mean, the corner, I think, is the heart. Being a rookie NFL corner and to get better as the year goes on is incredibly difficult. Why? Because everything's new. It's a technique rich position, but you're dealing with a higher level of athlete, and sometimes guys lose their confidence over time. This guy literally was better in week 5 than he was in camp. He was better in week 10 than he was in week 5. He was better in week 15 than he was in week 10. Do you see what I'm saying? We saw every time I watched him, he was more aware, playing faster, better, playing quicker with his eyes, turning his head faster, more aware in zone, tighter coverage in man-to-man. I mean, I saw a lot of good things from Ambry Thomas. That tells me he cares about the game and that they coached him up pretty good back there.
Yeah, I think he was coached, and Kyle Shanahan kind of talked about that, where the same with Juwan Jennings. Their veterans allowed them to bring those younger guys along slowly, and thankfully they didn't throw him in early because you never know if a player gets beat early or a player gets down early, how his confidence will respond. So, but they tried him early on, and Cincinnati came at him often. but he never flinched. He never wavered. And you could tell that if he was able to get through December, he'll be fine. So it'll be something to keep an eye on to see if he just takes the game to another level.
Let's talk about the front seven, because to me, this is an interesting thing. They lose DJ Jones. They lost Contavious Street. They've brought in Kalia Davis. He may not play this year. They brought in Drake Jackson, Kevin Atkins from Fresno State's still in this camp. They re-signed some guys. Jordan Willis is back. They brought back Kerry Hyder. And then they went out in the free agent market. They brought in Kamoko Toure out of Indy, Hassan Ridgeway out of Philadelphia. Sounds like they're on the verge of cutting D Ford, but that's a pretty deep defensive front that the 49ers have. Who would you say, if in the front seven of the 49ers, is the most important guy in their front seven in your mind?
I mean, Bosa is clearly the best player. Fred Warner is the best linebacker in the NFL. It would be tough to pick against two of the top players at their positions. With that said, we don't know what we're going to get from Kinlaw just because he hasn't been on the field enough.
Right.
I think it's Armstead again because he transformed their defense last year in the set. So essentially from the second half on, so the Bears game on, when Armstead played defensive tackle, he was an all-pro type of player, and you could not run the ball on them. When you can't run the ball on the 49ers, now you're faced with 3rd and long. And when it's 3rd and long and those guys get to pin their ears back, you just don't have a chance to move the ball, man. So I really think if they can get the same type of production when Eric Armstead plays inside as he did in 2021, they are going to be a nightmare because everybody knows about Bosa. Everybody knows about Warner. Bosa is going to get all of the attention from every offensive line ever. That was going to be the case no matter who they signed, no matter who they brought in, no matter who they drafted. So with that in mind, they need somebody else to step up. And Armstead more than stepped up last year. So really, he just has to be himself again. He doesn't have to do anything extra. He doesn't have to go over the top. He just needs to keep overwhelming guards who are he's the same size as them from a weight standpoint, but he's much bigger. He's stronger. He's more athletic. And using an 9-game sample size from last year, which is plenty, in my opinion, he is going to be a very important player for them. And if he does play at the same level he did in the second half of the season, we're looking at a top 5 defense.
I'm gonna go with two guys. I'm gonna go one on the outside is Charles Omenihu. I think there's more talent there. I saw him at Texas and I thought he played at a really high level for the Niners last year. I love Omenihu's talent in Chris Kocherek's, game plan of play with your hair on fire. If when you take a guy as talented, as big, as long, as talented as Charles Omenihu, and you can get him on a deep line where he's totally fresh, and if he's not fresh, you can rotate somebody else in, and you can get him going up the field in that wide 9 that Kocherek coaches. I think Omenihu is going to be a guy that takes a step forward this year, and I think Javon Kinlaw is the other guy. We don't really know. We know Kinlaw is big and strong and can play the run. We don't know if he can stay on the field or if he plays too upright and his knees get attacked. Can he stay healthy with that knee? But man, just looking at some of his workouts, looking at how he's moving, if this is what year 3 for him, if they really get it out of him and he's really playing at a high level, he's a major talent. And I don't think anybody, in some ways, he's a bigger talent than DJ Jones. Now, DJ Jones is more dependable and maybe better against the run. But Kinlaw, I think, has more potential to bull rush his man right into the lap of the quarterback. He's got more ability to, he's so strong he can throw guys away and defend the run. I think he's the one guy that has to be combo blocked in the run game because he'll split that with his strength. So to me, a healthy Javon Kinlaw operating at a high level and a healthy Charles Omenihu comfortable in this defense. I'm looking for those two guys to really take a step forward and be big players and a major part of the rotation this year for Kocherek.
Yeah, I actually picked Omenihu as my breakout player on the defense this year. And I think, again, second season, that's when these guys take a jump. And they need not so much like an Arden Key, but they need a guy who's just going to win one-on-one. So you have Armstead, you have Bosa, you have Kinlaw. Who knows what we're going to get from Drake Jackson, but there's going to be a guy, and he's going to be an edge rusher who they kick inside because that's just what they do. They put as many pass rushers on the field, line them up in mismatches, and say, just go get the quarterback. May the best athlete win. And we are talking about a prime athlete here, and he's young, and he is strong, and he has a great first step, and he can cover ground. So he generated enough pressure with the Texans, and even in the limited sample size last year, you could see the flashes from Minihue. So I'm very excited to see him, man. I can't wait. And we're going to get an early idea to see how he is against, the young offensive line. The 49ers offensive line is going to be in hell going against this defensive line in training camp, man.
Man, there's a lot of young offensive linemen who are going to be in that camp with their eyes wide going, oh, my goodness.
This is what the league's like?
Yeah, exactly. Does every team in the NFL have 15 good defensive linemen? It's unbelievable. The Niners 3s and 4s on that front could probably play in a lot of teams' defensive lines. What is the number one weakness going into camp? And it's kind of a combo question. A lot of talk about Julio Jones and different guys, and as you get closer, there's the free agency, the draft, then there's sometimes late free agency and a bunch of guys who get signed right before camp. Do you think this roster is the roster we're going to see, or do you think that there's a weakness or a free agent out there that you think they'll bring in between now and when they get rolling this July?
So that is barring injury, right?
Sure.
Yeah, because if somebody goes down, you have
all bets are off. Yeah,
necessity. Yeah, I do. I think if they really wanted to bring in a veteran safety, they would have done that by now. But at the same time, there's really no rush. You want to see what you have in Ufunga. You want to see what you have in Tarvarius Moore. You want to see what you have in George Odom. And safety is an obvious spot. But as I said before, I just think that their defense around that position is going to be so good that it won't really matter. That you just have to have competent play at safety. They don't have to be a world beater. They don't have to be Deshaun Goldson. They don't have to be like this guy who's going to lay you out every hit. He just has to be serviceable, and I think that's what they can get from Ufunga. So I really do think their lineup is going to be set. And to be honest, their cap space might not allow them to do anything else either. They don't even have $1 million in cap space right now. So if they wanted to sign somebody, it might be have a handshake and we're going to pay you down the line just because they don't have anything else. What about you? Who are you thinking?
I don't, it doesn't, to me, there's no reason for Julio Jones at this point. Julio Jones had the hammy last year. He couldn't get on the field. You're going to keep 5, maybe 6 wide receivers max, and they're stacked. They got Ayuk, they got Debo, they got Jawan Jennings. I think we'd all agree those guys are going to make the team. Then mix in Ray McLeod. That's 4. Danny Gray flies. I think everybody sees that. That's 5. And then that means, you got Marcus Johnson, Austin Mack, Keyshawn Johnson, who was good at Fresno State once upon a time, Malik Turner, who some people really like. I like Tay Martin out of Oak State. Taysir Mack is in this camp, the former Pitt Panther. So, all those guys are battling for maybe one spot. So I don't know. To me, I'd rather ride with what they've got than go with Julio Jones. If I had more confidence in Julio's ability to stay healthy, maybe I would think about it. But ultimately, I think Julio's lost a step and what it would cost you and who the reps that he would take away from the younger receivers. I don't see it. I don't see them making a significant. I think the roster they have right now is the roster pretty much they're going to go to camp with. I'd be shocked if they did anything big.
Signing Julio or like OBJ would be an indictment on the young wide receivers. That would be them telling us, hey, Danny Gray's not ready to play. Hey, Jawan Jennings didn't take the next step that we thought. Hey, Ray McLeod isn't, an offensive guy. He's going to be more of a special teamer. So that would just be them telling us we need a guy who can play right now, and the guys we have outside of Ayuk and Debo aren't ready.
Last one for you, and this is one of my favorite topics. What is your favorite, or what do you? I won't say best because I'll go favorite. Give me your favorite off-season addition for the 49ers. Not necessarily the best or who's going to be the most valuable. Just when you look at all the guys that are on this team at this point that weren't on this team a year ago. Give me your favorite guy that you're looking forward to.
My baby is cornerback, so it has to be Charvarius Ward by that. And when I say that is because if Ward, and I don't think people are aware of how good he is, and just like a matchup cornerback. So to be successful, and first of all, so he's 26. He's still very young. He's over 6 feet. He's over 200 pounds. He has the speed. He only like his completion percentage allowed last year was 44%, which is really freaking good. And when you're able to allow that level of completion, sometimes it's like, all right, did he play anybody? Did he go up against anybody? Yes, he played for Steve Spagnuolo, who is going to move around his cornerbacks, and Ward traveled with everybody. So I want to see how he does, because last year 49ers did not have a cornerback that they trusted for most of the season. This year they have Ward, who bumps Mosley into that CB2 role, who takes a lot of pressure off essentially everybody on the defense. So I want to see if Ward can live up to the contract that he got, because I think in a year or two his contract's going to look like a bargain. He hasn't played with a defensive line like this. He has not played with just like in a defense like this, like with this much talent. And I think he will be a big reason why the 49ers have a top 5 defense. So I'm going with Traveris Ward. Who are you excited to see?
I'm going to go with the two guys in the perimeter that I think are really, really important to this team. One is Danny Gray. I think Danny Gray is going to create a ton of space for the receiving game, and because of that, I think he's going to be very impactful. And then the other thing is, last time the 49ers hit the field, they couldn't stop Cooper Kupp, and I love the addition of Samuel Womack. A buddy of mine sent me some Womack, some Toledo film, and I started looking at him, and he's exactly what you're looking for. He's a tenacious, cocky, confident press man corner who's going to get up in your face, reroute you at the line. He's got tons of confidence. His kid went from walk-on to all-conference, and he's got some real swagger. So I think Womack helps them on the defense on the perimeter, and I think Danny Gray helps them on the offense on the perimeter and creates a ton of space. So those are the two guys I think are going to be big additions, because I think Womack's going to be able to really cover, and I think Gray's going to be able to really create that space. I said it was the last one. I actually have two more for you, because there's two guys I got to get your thoughts on. One, Leon O'Neal. I'm an A&M fan, so I watch A&M every week, and I watch this kid. I loved him in college. He made big play after big play after big play. I loved it this week when he's like out here for the mini camp, and he's like, man, the Bay Area weather, it's like, there's no humidity, and it's perfect.
That Texas sun.
Yeah, exactly. He's been there in College Station, and now he's out here going, oh my goodness, you guys got it so good, I'm never leaving. But he also made a guarantee. I'm making the roster. I'm making that 53. I love that about this kid, and I think he's going to make it. And I know there are physical limitations, and I know there's some stiffness in his game. If you watch him in coverage down the field, that's his weakness, coverage down the field. But I think Leon O'Neal's a baller, and I think he believes in himself, and I think that's like 80% of the battle right there. You gotta be a dog, and you gotta have real belief, because there'll be plenty of reasons to doubt yourself along the way if you don't have it. And I just think he's got the enough confidence and skills to make this team. I'm looking forward to it. But what do you think of his guarantees? Undrafted free agent, guaranteeing to make the Niners roster.
That's the kind of confidence you want, right? And coaches know that. Coaches will notice that, I should say. So people pretend like they don't know what's on social media. They're not searching their names. Like, I've been in the locker room. I've seen these guys go to their phones right away and see what people said about them. But in this case, that's the type of guy you want, right? You want to know that a guy's confident. You want to know that, and let's be honest, he's seen the safety depth chart. He knows that he has a good chance of making it. Again, all he has to do is make plays on the ball, because that's what they're looking for. Those are the type of players that they brought in the draft with their draft picks. So he has a leg up. He has to be versatile, though. Like, he has to be able to show that not only can he cover one-on-one, he has to be able to hold it down in the slot, because there's not really a slot defender. So for him to make the team, he's going to have to be a great tackler like K1 Williams. He's going to have to be good with his eyes in the zone, and also have to show that he has the athleticism and speed to run with guys, to carry him down the seam. So it'll be I thought that was one of his downfalls, is, just speed, or just like short area quickness in general. So we will see how he looks in the open field, because the 49ers have some guys who will make you look silly in the open field. If he can hold up in the open field, then he'll be fine. But that would be the one area that I would look out for him.
Last one. We appreciate Kyle Posey stopping by. And by the way, go to Niners Nation, and we'll ask Kyle about that in just a second. But give me your thought on Trey Sermon, because I saw a little workout thing that he was doing the other day. I saw just a little video. You probably saw the same thing. He's on like a balance. He's on like one of those balls, and he's trying to balance, and guys are kind of hitting him with things. And he's trying to maintain contact balance. And I just love this player in the draft. I pumped my fist when they drafted him, and I was really excited to see him get loose in that Seattle game last year, never to be seen from again. Like basically after that moment, I still have a lot of belief in Trey Sermon. I think he's coming for round 2 this summer, and I think people who threw dirt on his grave are going to be digging that dirt off by mid-August. Give me your thought on Sermon. What you thought of him on draft night? What you thought of him watching him last year? And what do you look at his prognosis going into camp in year 2?
Yeah, I don't think he's out of it at all. Like, I think there's a better chance of him being like that running back 2 as opposed to out of the rotation period. So think about it. Yes, he had struggles last year, but it was more of him figuring out what he can and can't do at the NFL level. Essentially, you can't stop your feet in the backfield, and that's what he did. Like, he was just a little bit hesitant. What he was able to get away with at Ohio State, he learned the hard way, I should say, that you can't do that in the NFL, but still, he has the vision. I think his vision's better than Elijah Mitchell. I think that he offers more out of the backfield than Elijah Mitchell, and that will be a big reason why he's able to get on the field. So it'll come down to who offers the most as a pass protector, who is going to like those explosive runs, but at the same time, those every down runs. So can you turn those 2 and 3 yard runs into 4, 5, and 6? But I like Trey Sermon a lot. I thought it was a good draft pick at the time, and I'm not going to bail on him after 1 year, because we see this every year in a Kyle Shanahan offense. 1 year, one guy rushes for 900 yards. The next year, he rushes for 400 yards, and it's vice versa. 1 year, a guy comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden, he's among the league leaders in rushing yards. Why wouldn't that be Trey Sermon? Because he had a few bad games last year with an offensive line, mind you, that will be better this year. Like, they're going to be better just because it would be tough for them to be worse in short yardage situations. So, I'm not quitting on Trey Sermon at all.
Hey, obviously this is our Niners Nation edition of the Krueg Show. Tell us what you got cooking on Niners Nation. I know, there's a bunch of stuff up right now, but what are you personally working on that we'll see here in the days ahead?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's Memorial Day weekend, and I'm going to be taking it easy. So, what we are doing is we're going through just little profiles from individual players. Like today we had Juwan Jennings up, or we've had Elijah Mitchell up. Next week we're going to be working on more of a defensive guys, see who's going to take the next step, whether is Azeez Al-Shaair. I saw the Falcons had a need for linebacker because they have a guy who's out for off-season shoulder surgery. So is that going to be an opportunity for maybe the 49ers to possibly move one of their linebackers, whether it's Al-Shaair or Dre Greenlaw? So digging into some storylines like that.
Awesome stuff. By the way, we are aware Jim from NorCal says, "Hey, Krug, did you see the Pat McAfee show?" Yes, I saw Pat McAfee commenting on Javon Kinlaw and Grant Cohn. And no, I don't want to comment on Pat McAfee or Kinlaw or Cohn. But I do want to ask you this, Kyle, because both of us have covered the 49ers for years. I did the pregame show for the last 11 seasons, pre and post and halftime. You've been around this team covering football for a number of years as well. Do you have a philosophy when it comes to, just like your standard or your belief or, how you want to talk about the players? Because it's kind of, George Kittle has brought this up in support of Javon Kinlaw. A lot of the players have brought up that it's the tone, and it's more than the tone. It's are you going to be around to be accountable for what you're saying? How do you view your job? Do you view it as you're sharing information with Niner fans? Do you look at it, everybody's got a different perspective, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of get your thoughts on what we do, which is cover the team. And we've had to do it differently the last few years because of the pandemic. Many of us have had to do things virtually because of just the logistics of this pandemic and how things have worked out. But do you have an overarching philosophy on, because we talk football and we talk players, and our analysis sometimes is critical. And it's not we're not just here saying, we're not doing Tony the Tiger live streams. They're great. It's like there's nuance to the commentary. Some of it's positive, some of it's negative. My always philosophy and hope is that just people always know that 0% of it is personal or in any way a vendetta. But give me your philosophy. You've been covering this team.
Yeah, so don't say anything that you wouldn't say to their face. That's number one. And I feel like that will eliminate a lot of the BS or just filler that you would throw out there, because after a game, whether you're a fan, whether you're just a reporter, there's going to be natural emotion. So you're going to say some things that you probably wouldn't say in general. So you have to let cooler heads prevail. I would just say, remember that these guys are people too. And with that in mind, these guys are people, but you don't have to sugarcoat everything. Like, for example, if Trey, like the way we talk about Trey Sermon, everybody, Trey included, would acknowledge that he didn't play well last season. That doesn't mean he's a bust. That doesn't mean his career's over. He's had a bad year where he needed to improve on things. And if he does improve on those things, he will look like the 3rd round draft pick that they took. So I feel like just keeping everything in the picture, keeping everything where it doesn't have to be these extremes where they're either the greatest ever or they're the worst player ever. Like, as you said, nuance. Like with these streams, we can use that nuance too. And we don't have to use it in 280 characters where we can just say these hot takes. But I would just say, remember they're humans, and don't say something that you wouldn't say to their face. But at the same time, the critical media is necessary. Like, that's needed. We have to hold them accountable. If Kyle Shanahan makes a call on 3rd down, let's ask him after the game, what were you thinking here? Why didn't you go for it on 4th down? And when we bring that up, that doesn't mean Kyle Shanahan's a terrible coach. I would take him over nearly any coach in the NFL. So critical thinking is necessary without making it personal. And that's tough for a lot of people to do.
Yeah. I always tell people too, don't forget that these guys are putting a ton into the process of football. I mean, they're not these play calls. There's so much that goes into it. You don't even begin to start questioning the play calls definitively. You can question it, but you can wonder about it. But you're armed with so much less information than the coaches are, than the coordinators are, that it's like you're going down a road that you ought to tread lightly on. And as far as the players understand that this is a tough game played by tough guys, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. Come forward with your commentary and bring it strong. But I think Kyle's point there is the salient one, which is, don't say anything that you would not feel comfortable saying to that player right then and there if it was an open locker room. That's kind of the way I feel about it as well. And then we've got this one on the Chihuahua 56 donates $2 more. He says, we just have to be respectful. That goes both ways. I think that's well said. And that's probably where we'll finish this thing. Hey, great stuff as usual. And we'll do this again next week. It's always a pleasure to chop it up with you and talk Niner football, and have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you next Thursday.
Looking forward to it. Enjoy the weekend, man.
You too, man. Kyle Posey stopping by Niners Nation. Thanks to everybody tuning in to the Krueg Show.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to hassle. Yeah. We ain't never fall back.